So I just watched an Al Jazeera interview with Richard Dawkins that was done at Oxford by the journalist named Mahdi Hassan, I believe. And he did a pretty good job, I thought. At times it turned into more of a debate than an interview, although at certain points Hassan would pass on to the next question he had rather than challenge Richard Dawkins on what I thought were rather impotent, shallow answers. In particular, I like that Hassan pressed Dawkins on this issue of, all the examples that one might give of movements for social justice and peace that were nonviolent and that were motivated by religion. Martin Luther King Jr. and Gandhi are perhaps the most high-profile cases, but it seems like Dawkins, he said himself, I'm not really interested in those examples. He was more interested in emphasizing the way that faith, as he understands it, is a kind of disease of the mind that leads people to believe in what they have no evidence for believing. This whole notion of faith as belief without evidence is interesting because it strikes me that much of science, the method of science at least, is really dependent upon several beliefs. The belief in causality, the belief in the rational order of nature, that we can ultimately understand, the swarming patterns of and multiplicities of nature in terms of general laws that can be mathematized. These are beliefs that we have, and they've, not to say that they haven't panned out well and that we haven't been confirmed in these beliefs, but we don't have direct evidence for causality. We have to sort of assume these things as principles underlying our scientific inquiry. And once we assume those things, once we have faith, say, in the rational order of nature, then we can go about collecting data, performing experiments, and so on. So science itself depends on a certain kind of faith in rationality that we hold without conclusive evidence of its reality. And our day-to-day lives as civilized human beings sort of depends upon plenty of beliefs without evidence. Like, we have to believe that we have free will. We have to believe that people are therefore responsible for their actions morally. We have to believe in design, right? A scientist has to believe that they can rationally design experiments and instruments to collect their data and attempt to falsify their theories. So, is there any evidence for design? Is there any evidence for freedom? No. These are the kind of things that become real when we are willing to believe in them. Were we skeptical of these things, then neither science nor civilization would be possible. So my point here is, there are so many things that we are forced to believe without evidence in order to go about our day-to-day lives. So Dawkins' definition of faith, I think, is a little shallow, in that it includes almost everything. And what was really at stake in this debate or this interview between Hassan and Dawkins was whether or not God exists, right? So the question is God real or a figment of people's imagination? And that strikes me, I'm not interested in that question so much. I'm more interested in the sort of pragmatist's question about religion, which is not does God or does not God exist, but what changes about an individual's behavior and the behavior of the society to which that individual belongs when they profess to believe in some sort of religious vision of the world, which is not necessarily supernatural. It just says that the cosmos is intrinsically meaningful. What happens when people believe that the universe is a meaningful place and that the human being has an important role to play in that universe? What changes, right? What are the consequences of such beliefs? I think that's the more interesting question. And a related question is what are the consequences of atheistic materialism or scientific materialism? What happens to society when we believe that?